they did was they organized a workshop with the community to try to settle on some of these conventions. They also did a curriculum development workshop, and this has been done several times. We wrote an article together. A mother tongue-based early childhood textbook was also produced and published. And then, of course, there was primary research being done by our 3 members here, where they collected 4 words and 4 sociolinguistic use of some undocumented varieties. And then, also importantly, we did a dissemination workshop at the end of last year. So this is the tongue-based early childhood textbook, which includes short stories, songs, word lists, and various other themes. Yeah, our members here also collected data, as I said, in 4 villages. And very important, and this was really kind of me combining our auction project with my own research. So we did a dissemination workshop where we called members from the community, young and old, male and female, and we kind of disseminated all of our results, all of our work in Estonia and Sweden and further on to the community. Then we kind of had many discussions on how to go about how to continue our language revitalization activities, and we got some incredible feedback because we're now advancing into the digital age with language revitalization. So we needed to make sure we were kind of on board with many of the elders and that they were kind of okay with passing the mantle on to younger people to take on this task. So these were some of the success stories, but of course it hasn't always been smooth sailing. We have encountered quite some challenges in this whole process. To start with, there's still a lack of expertise in teaching of local languages. We have our highly trained members over here, but you know, we need to be doing this on a much larger scale, so that's still an obstacle. We've produced the books, but printing them is a whole other expense. It's proved very expensive, and so this has been a huge stumbling block in disseminating these children books. Sometimes there have also been internal disputes within the community, which is sometimes unavoidable. But when big projects come about, people disagree on how to proceed, or even how to go about certain orthographic conventions.
Excuse me,
and so
time's up. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And there are many dialects. I'll just quickly go through this. Yeah. I'll mention the last point that we want to involve Abui in kind of the AI revolution because we have a lot of data. Yeah. And these were some key takeaways if you're going to take anything away, but I think I had 15 minutes or 20 minutes.
Time's up for 15 minutes, so still have 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Can
Q&A.
I take 1 minute to run? Just because it's always good to have a few kind of takeaways at the end of a talk, but is someone doing that? Okay. What I want to say is, as linguists, I think we have an important role in facilitating collaboration between communities and other bodies that can assist in the process. Training of community members and exposing to other fueling ideas and best practices. It's also crucial to target multiple domains and stakeholders, example, parents, the school system, but also children, social media, the digital space, music, and so on. Dissemination workshops, which give voice to other community members, are also very important in harnessing ethical kind of consent and having people's voices heard as well. So I'll end with that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. George Saad. And we still have 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Okay, 4 minutes. I open one question from participant. Okay, Dr. Richard.
Thank you. I am very curious of the result of the revitalization. While you have presented the challenges, Dr. Sad, I'd like to see if there were some sort of transformation with that of the recipient of the project, referring to the children. How has this brought them after having successfully implemented several key projects alongside with curriculum development?
Yeah. So we haven't fully evaluated the impact of these measures, but we know from Danny Lanma, for example, who's a school teacher, that a lot of students have adapted to this. So he as a school teacher encourages them to go record their grandparents as part of their assignments.
That's it. Well, we continue to the second speaker or presenter, Adolfina. Second speaker or presenter, Adolfina MS Moibeka, will present about phonetic zeroations in Abui language. Time is yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Tere, thank you for giving us this chance to present our research. We are going to discuss about phonetic zeroization in Abui, which is a Papuan language, and for all activities for revitalization, what have been presented previously by George Sarton as our supervisors. And this phonetic zero, we found this is an interesting theme to be discussed because we found it during our word list collection and sociolinguistic collecting data, and also when we compiled our teaching book for early childhood education. So let's see. Phonetic zeroization happen in Abui. So, what we are discussing about zeroization. Zeroization itself is the removal of phonemic sounds as a result of effort to economize pronunciations. So when we talk about zeroization in Abui language, actually it occurs in common languages, and it always has impacts in education and also orthography development. So this is the overview.
This is the overview of our presentation today. Next, please. So before going into the topic, we raised two big questions. They are, what are the various types of zeroization that are in Abui language? The second one, what are the consequences of the zeroization in Abui language? Well, before resolving the two questions, we want to introduce that Abui is a Papuan language or a non-Austronesian language in the island of Alor, which there are a lot of local languages, more or less. There are 17 family. There are 17 language families and more than 53 variants. And for this research, we are going to, and we have already collected data in the north coast of the Alor Island. As you can see in the map, Alor people. As said by previous presenter, Abui speakers are more or less 41,000, and the status of this language is well documented if compared to other local languages in Alor. Abui language is used in family gatherings, rituals, and also daily conversations. Why and how we raised with this topic? Into 2023, we did a data collection in 5 variants of Abui, and it appears, zeroization appears there. So that's why we chose a Takalelang dialect to study about the zeroization. Because we know that it could give impact to phonological structure and also documentation and also revitalization. So it's important to introduce as well that phonology of Abui I wrote for my master's thesis. So Abui language has 17 native consonants in 6 places of articulation and 3 borrowed consonants in 2 places of articulation. Abui vowels, there are 5 Abui vowels and a vowel length contrast.
Now let's look at the type of zeroizations happens or exists in Abui language, and based on phonological data have been presented and collecting by our team member and community usage, we identify several distinction types of zeroizations in Abui. Yeah, they are actually we try to use George Yule concept of zeroizations, and George Yule's provide there are 5 types of zeroization, namely apheresis, syncope, apocope, haplology, and elisions. But what exists in Abui, we just found there are 2 types of zeroization happens. They are apheresis and syncope. Yeah, apheresis itself is the omission or phoneme at the beginning of a word. Let's look at the example from English. For example, when it is written about, but sometimes we say about. or when it is written because, but we sometimes pronounce cause. So an interesting thing for us, for our member, to discuss what happened in our language. And this is the examples, what we found in our language, Abui language, that the Abui language, actually in apheresis, it is exhibited consistent patterns in which it refers to the omission of one or more phonemes at the beginning of a word. From the data presented here, we observe that the process of deletion is usually happen to the consonant and vowel, and particularly to the vowel and consonant ha or H, the letter H, and E, A. Yeah, this is the example, like the word hieng. Sometimes it's pronounced yang to economize the pronunciations. And next, what we found in Abui zeroization, we found syncope. Syncope itself, syncope, it refers to the omission of phoneme in the middle of the word. So when it happened to Abui language, things that it also, we can use, we can adapt your concept of syncope to find what happened to Abui language. And this is the example we found the syncope in Abui phonetics. The word miei, nieng, mahiting, and rihei. Yeah, these words already less, or the high vowel E sometimes is omitted, especially in the medial or pre-final position, as seen in the form like the first, it is not the sixth but first, like mieng become mieng. The omission of E occurs to economize the pronunciations. And the others. Yeah, this is the example of syncope happen in Abui. And what are the consequences we found, or during our investigation, that the zeroization happens or occurs in Abui found caused by natural laws of reductions, and also influenced by the national language used. It is Bahasa and also Alor Malay, where the zeroization occurs as a part of natural laws of reduction, that in everyday speech, especially when the speakers speak quickly, informally, they tend to simplify words by omitting less prominent sounds. And then the second, by what caused the zeroization happens in Abui, is also driven by the influence of national languages, that is Bahasa and Alor Malay used, that this language is dominantly used in education, in media, in administration, and in daily communication. So especially among younger speakers, they sometimes tend to use what they hear directly from the elder speakers, and they don't, what is the actually form of, and they can directly use the word they hear. So let's see the consequences of the zeroization. When it happens, the phenomenon presents both challenges and also opportunities for developing consistent orthography standards and literacy materials in endangered language contexts. So due to the consequence of the second consequence of the zeroization in Abui, Alor Malay lead to lose the underlying form. For example, a young speaker typically mimic and reduce form, like what we found in Abui, the word hewahai. It should be pronounced hewahai, but sometimes the younger speaker prefer to say hewai than hewahai. Okay. Yeah, and then we come to the conclusion why this zeroization is important, that zeroization in Abui frequently occurs in unstressed syllables and rapid speech contexts, and particularly among younger speakers. And the second conclusion we can take from this study is the reduction affect not only phonological form, but also has implication in other linguistic forms. I think that is all of our presentation. Kango. Terima kasih, matur susun. Tere tulemas. Okay.
Well, thank you, Ibu Adolfina and team. We still have 5 minutes for Q&A. Give the chance to the participants. If you have any questions, yeah, you can raise your hand. Yeah, one question, please.
Well, thank you. The same location about Abui. This case actually also happen in many local language in Indonesia, especially is Indonesia. Must be the cause is contact with majority language, that is Alor Malay. For me, maybe hello. Well, I've been done research on contact language between Baju and Bima and Baju and Sasak. Mean that must be system followed by Abui, while the zeroization and others. That's from me. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a suggestion or question. Sorry, I didn't get your point. But yeah, as I mentioned before in our presentation, that it is the zeroization caused by our dominant language use. And it has contact with other languages, especially with Bahasa and also Alor Malay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. More questions? Any more questions? We still have time, still have 2 minutes more. Okay, from Professor Marian.
Thank you, Ibu. So my question is about the forms that start with he and then they lose ha and e. And the first example that you gave was see it in my ear or something. I forgot the form.
Yeah, in apharesis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is that the loss of a prefix maybe? Like a possessor prefix or an object prefix? Could that be not, I mean, it's a sound that's lost, but is it also a prefix?
Yeah, actually it is the sound, and when we produce the sound, we omit it or delete the sound H and I.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
this does not mean that it's the prefix that's going.
It's not exhibited.
It's possessor maybe.
Yeah,
It is.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then this is not a sound loss, it's a loss of a prefix. It's a morphological loss.
I see. Yeah. Thank you, Ibu Marian. It's, actually, we find, based on what we understand about kind of zeroization happen, if there is mistake, we are ready to correct, revise it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Prof. Marian, for the question. Well, thank you, Ibu Adolfina and team. Give a big applause to this team.
Mabuhay.
Yeah. You may go back to the seat. Well, for this session is the last presenter. We invite Professor Marian Klemmer with the title Linguistic Diversity and Wellbeing in Super Diverse Indonesia, Exploring Regional Variations and Language Preservations.
So this is a talk that may be containing information that is already known by many of the Indonesian participants, but may not be known to the ones that are not from Indonesia. Indonesia is very, very diverse linguistically as well as ethnically, and the linguistic ecology. So the linguistic situation in Indonesia is also very, very complex because of this very diverse situation. It's complex and it's unbalanced. In many places it's different and it's always changing and it's shifting. So, and I want to show you some of these aspects in this talk. So I present some information on linguistic diversity and then linguistic ecology and then issues in language sustainment if there's enough time. If not, then I'll skip the last part. So in Indonesia there are more than 700 languages and about a quarter of those are spoken in the western half of the country. And the rest is spoken in the eastern half of the country. So it's especially the eastern half of the country is extremely diverse, linguistically speaking. And in this one country, we have 32 language families, totally unrelated, as well as 18 isolate, at least 18, maybe more. And some more sign languages. And if you look at the list here, the one in blue, these are the Oceanician languages. There are more than 400 in Indonesia. One of them is, of course, Javanese and so on. And then the ones in green are non-Oceanician languages, Papuan languages. I put them in green because these are the only families that have more than 13 members. So these are relatively big, and of course the Trans-New Guinea family is a lot bigger than 51 languages, but this only refers to the Indonesian part of the family. And all the other language families in Indonesia are very small. They have less than 10 family members, and most of them actually have less than 5. So these are really, really tiny families. This is information according to glottolog. Yeah, so this shows the extreme diversity, especially in Papua. In Indonesia, the proportion of languages and speakers is also very unbalanced. In the west, on the island Java, Bali and Madura, you have the most speakers. The majority of speakers in Indonesia live in these 3 islands, but the languages that are spoken there are just a very small proportion of the languages that are spoken in Indonesia. And Papua is the other way around. You have lots and lots and lots of languages, but only a very small proportion of the inhabitants, the people of Indonesia live in Papua. I want to contrast 3 islands and the linguistic situation there, just to give you an idea of the variation. First we look at Java, then we look at Pantar, and then we look at Sumba. In Java, Java is a huge island. If you know the geography of the Netherlands, you probably don't, but the Netherlands is only 1/4 of the size of the island of Java. So Java is, for a Dutch person, is a really big island, and it has 145 million inhabitants. And the 4 big languages are Javanese, Sundanese, and Madurese, as well as varieties of Malay. In contrast to this, let's go to Pantar Island, a small island in NTT, Nusa Tenggara Timur, in the east. You can find it on the right-hand side in the circle there. The size of Pantar is only 0.5% of Java, so you can fit Pantar 200 times in Java. And the population is a tiny percentage of the population of Java. And now, look at the number of languages. There are 11 languages on this tiny, tiny, tiny island. One of the languages actually went extinct in 2019 with the last speaker dying. But as you can see, the 10 remaining languages, well, 2 of them we don't know yet how many speakers they have, but the others have, well, something between 200 and 5,000 speakers. And a big language is in the pink part here. That's Western Pantar, Pantar Barat. So this is Pantar. Now let's look at Sumba, which is like a medium-sized island in Indonesia. It's still less than 10% of the size of Java. And the population is only 0.22%, so it's very sparsely populated. Here we also have quite a lot of languages, 7. I did my PhD fieldwork over here, Canberra. And you can see that the size of the languages in Sumba is relatively bigger than the ones in Pantar, but nowhere near the size of the languages in Java. So the second point that I wanted to discuss or show to you is the linguistic ecology in Indonesia, which is quite interesting. First of all, we have the national language, Indonesian, which was made into a national language when Indonesia became independent. One land, one people, one language, that was the slogan. And it was maintained during the Suharto regime until the 1998. And during this time, when I was a PhD student in the 1990, it was still a policy that local languages were not allowed to be spoken unless, only at the home, but nowhere else. Because everyone had to speak Indonesian as the national symbol and unifying tool. And the ideal was that everyone in Indonesia should become monolingual and speak just Indonesian. Fortunately, this policy has been abolished. But still, at the moment, Indonesian is at the very, very top of the hierarchy. And it's a very good tool for uniting diverse groups and also for intercultural communication. And it's the official language of the state and for education, the media, government, and also culture, science, and technology. Indonesian has a standard variety, and that's an interesting thing. I asked my colleagues at UI, University of Indonesia in Jakarta last week, are you using a particular grammar of Indonesian as your standard? And that's the Tata Bahasa Buku Bahasa Indonesia, Baku Bahasa Indonesia. That's the standard grammar of Indonesian. And this is a grammar that was written by actually one person in 1988, a very prescriptive grammar, so a grammar full of rules on how you should speak Indonesian. It came along with the kamus, so a dictionary. And this grammar is still in use today. And interestingly, all my colleagues tell me that no one speaks Indonesian, Bahasa Indonesia, Baku. No one does, because everywhere in Indonesia there's a mix of Indonesian and some local influences from the local languages. So the question is still out there, although we do have a standard, what is the standard? Because no one is speaking it. An example between the contrast between Bahasa Baku and Bahasa Tidak Baku that was given in the literature somewhere. Mereka is they, the pronoun they. But then in many dialects of Indonesia, you say dia orang, or anaknya is his child, but you can also say dia punya orang, his child, dia punya anak, and so on. So there's a lot of variation, especially in the east of Indonesia, in what is considered to be standard Indonesian. Now the local languages are Bahasa Daerah. They were not supposed to be used in schools, and until the 1980s, children were still punished by teachers in schools when they were heard using local languages. Not everywhere, but especially in eastern Indonesia, this was quite frequent. And what the result was that the languages retreated to the home. So people did not use it anymore, and then from the home, it even retreated to only specific cultural contexts, domains, rituals, poetic register, and so on. And this was not because the speakers valued their languages as low or not good enough, because basically what many speakers say is they speak the local language because it's the language that they're most intimate with. It's the language of their socializing. They really can express themselves in it. So it has a very positive value. On top of the regional languages, the Bahasa Daerah, we also have regional lingua francas, so inter-ethnic communication tools. And in many provinces of Indonesia, different types of regional lingua francas are being used. Here are some examples. And these lingua francas, they are taking over at the moment, the Bahasa Daerah. Because so people start using the local lingua franca more and more, and they forget about the Bahasa Daerah. And then we have the local Malay varieties on top of that. And one example was discussed in the previous talks, where Alor Malay is one of those local Malay varieties. And Kupang Malay was also discussed this morning. And these varieties are taking over the local languages. Like this morning it was discussed, Kupang Malay is taking over Helong, and Alor Malay is taking over Alorese. Alorese used to be not in Abui, but in other parts of Alor Panta used to be the lingua franca, the local lingua franca. And these are more examples of where local Malays are replacing the Bahasa Daerah. So you can see there are 4 layers of languages basically everywhere in Indonesia, and they all interact in many complicated ways. The value, okay, so the value of local languages, well, this is preaching for the church choir. They're really very valuable. They are the vehicle of intangible heritage, of oral history, literature, knowledge system, and rituals. We've seen some examples in the posters also about for instance, the knowledge system of the plants that you can use for weaving and coloring weaving. And they also have a social value and an economic value. But unlike, for instance, what is usually assumed to be the case in the languages of Europe, languages, as far as I have seen them being used in Indonesia, are not necessarily identity markers. So they are not really used to to mark your identity, but more as a tool and you know, as a carrier of culture and social values and economic values. They're more a tool than an identity marker. And the tool language is a tool. You can just shift from one language to another if it is more convenient for you to do so. And it often occurs unnoticed by speakers. And also, usually speakers, when they mix the local language or the regional lingua franca or Malay or the local Malay variety or Indonesian or in English for that matter, if they mix it, that's not a problem. It's even seen kind of, in many cases, it's seen as a kind of being eloquent in language. And it's just a tool to get your meaning across. So there has been just one study of the function of local languages in Indonesia, and that's this one that I list here. So in what I'm saying here is probably just impressions that I have based on what I've seen in the field, but the more research needs to be done, especially on the small minority local languages. How much time? Well, 2 minutes. So, issues in language sustainment. Well, the issue is clear that if things go on like it's going on at the moment in Indonesia, many of the 700 languages will have disappeared in 2050. Either being replaced by a regional lingua franca or Malay variety or Indonesian or all of these. So what can we do? And this goes back to the talk by Rudolf this morning. What can we do to sustain these local languages? It's often being claimed that literacy helps. The problem is, and that's mentioned by colleagues from UBB and Kupang, we have lack of books, printed media, and in schools, usually only majority languages are being taught. In Java and in Bali, it's fine to have a local language in school because it's such a big language and there's books. But if you remember, like in Pantar, when you have 11 languages and many languages are only spoken in 1 or 2 villages by about 2,000 people, of course you do not have books for schools. And also no orthography. And the teachers are also usually not from the island itself, so they don't know how to teach the local language. Moreover, it was pointed out to me by one of the teachers that in his school, in his primary school, there were, no, not the secondary school, SMP, there were, in one class, there were like 6 different languages. So which language are you going to use? So basically what this African scholar mentioned, literacy is useful for language preservation, but not for language maintenance. Because in many situations, there is no possibility to develop literacy in a proper way. Mother tongue education sustains the local minority language. That's another kind of mantra. The question is, in many situations in Indonesia, what is the mother tongue? Is it the mother tongue, or is it maybe the father's tongue? Is it maybe the community language? Because we have so many mixed marriages and even mixed communities, so it's very unclear what is the mother tongue. And if we know what the mother tongue is, if that is indeed the language that the child hears when they grow up, it may not be the one that he or she is hearing, because the mother lives in an environment where her own language is not spoken, so she cannot speak the mother tongue. So there's a lot of problems there. And then another thing that has been pointed out is actually you don't really need to have mother tongue education in school, because schools can also use Indonesian as well as alongside the local language if possible, because children are totally capable of dealing with two languages, one outside school and one inside school. You don't need education of the mother tongue necessarily if you want sustainment. And also the costs are very, very high. Another way to deal with this issue is to make local languages co-official. And so there was co-official status for Javanese, Sundanese, Madurese, Minangkabau, Achenese, Balinese, Makassarese, and Toraja. These are really big, huge languages. And then there's also status for the local lingua francas mentioned here. But this is not necessarily also a way to sustain the endangered languages. Because what does it mean to be a major language so that you can be co-officialized? Which of the local languages would you choose to be co-officialized? And also it has the effect to make one language superior to the others, and that creates a lot of sensitive issues between communities, and it has no effect on the language maintenance. In contrary, it has negative effects because the co-official languages that have been introduced, they are replacing the smaller local languages. They are taking over, they're dominating, and they're taking over. Okay, so finally, the family as the core part of this language sustainment, that is the transmission within family context is the most vital factor in language maintenance, and that's actually something that is confirmed by a lot of research. Although much research has been done in Indonesia, but it has been done in other places in the world. What is most endangering is that when the child speaks a different language than the parents speak. That is, so to turn it around, if you do not want your language to be endangered, stop speaking to your child in a different language. Use your own language and help them to actually keep the language alive at home. And the policies of the government should actually focus on that part and make parents aware of this thing, that it's perfectly fine to use local language at home. And it even is beneficial. So this is what I wanted to convey today. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor. Yeah, we still have 2 minutes. Okay, one question from participants. Any questions? Yes, Dr. George.
Yes, thank you for that. Very interesting, of course. And yeah, Javanese is a huge language. I think there are more Javanese L1 speakers than British English L1 speakers. That's quite impressive. And of course, it was the lingua franca and the language of the Majapahit Empire. But is there any evidence of language shift having taken place in Java, and why it would have happened compared to, for example, Bali and parts of the Philippines where they didn't shift, but they borrowed a lot? Do we have any evidence that Java was actually much more linguistically diverse
in the past?
In the past compared to now? Is there anything?
No. I think if there is a shift in Java, it's shifting to Indonesian. And Javanese is losing some domains to Indonesian, especially in cities. But I haven't done research on this. It's just impressionistic ideas. The diversity of Javanese is quite, there are lots of different dialects, and it may have been like this in the past, we don't know. But some of this diversity is getting lost due to the influence of Indonesian.
Well, thank you, Prof. Is that all for this session? Give a big applause to Professor Marian Clemmer. Yeah, it's the end of these sessions. Thank you for the third presenters. We go on to the next sessions. I give back time to the MC. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the moderators and to the speakers. And now we would like to invite the moderators and all the speakers to come forward for the handover of certificate from Professor Daniel Lawson from Bristol University. Now we would like to invite Ms. Ernie Hambadima from Arta Wacana Christian University. Also like to invite George Saad and team, Adolfina M.S. Moibeka and team, and Professor Marian Clemmer to come forward. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Right, thank you so much, all the moderators, speakers, and please kindly return to your seat. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving on to our last sessions of our today's presentation. In this session, of course, we are going to have our next moderator. He is Kede Primahadi Wijaya Rajak, a PhD from Udayana University, and will guide us through our last session today. And to the moderator, time is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Teja, as the MC. Good afternoon, everyone, and we are glad that we are all still here until the last session. We will have 3 speakers. One of them is me, and first one is from Christopher Kinipi with the presentation titled Influence of Betel Nut Chewing on Oral Microbiome in Papua New Guinea. So I think without further ado, I would like to invite our speaker. Time is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, thank you for having me. I will present findings from a recent study on the influence of betel nut on the oral microbiome on Papua New Guineans. So this study was is a collaboration between the Papuan Past Project and the Melbourne Institute of Functional Genomics. And Papuan Past Project director is also here, Francois. So this presentation is one aspect of our work. This paper has been recently published in the Evolution, Medicine and Public Health Journal. So background on the betel nut, it's the fruit of the betel palm, and is widely used across Oceania and Asia. It's culturally significant in Papua New Guinea, and also it poses some risks, health risks, especially to the oral health. There is limited region-specific microbiome data to explain why PNG is one of the world's highest rates of oral diseases. So betel nut has some alkaloids like aracholine, which induces mild euphoria and alertness, and it's used by about 600 million people, especially in the South Asia and Oceania. So there is the region at the top with India, and the middle, Indonesia, PNG, coming all the way down to Maldives. It's widely used in these areas. In PNG, there are several types of betel nuts, and these different nuts might have different biochemical features as well. So you see the betel nut there, plus the white powder is lime, and the betel piper vine there. They combine the three of them to chew, and the result is the red stain on the other side. So it's chewed by about 50% of the adults, both equally among men and women. So it's perceived as one of the green gold, and it's a symbol also of peace, and also used in traditional ceremonies. But the betel nut was associated with alteration in the human oral microbiome, with diseases such as oral cancer and periodontitis. So there is betel nut use as both culturally rooted in PNG as well. And the positive side of it is it acts as a stimulant and helping users feel more alert, less fatigued, and all other good effects that the users use for, as well as the social aspect of it. And it provides thousands of families in rural areas with economic opportunities for the sale of this betel nut. However, the excessive use or the long-term use comes with health consequences, and medically it has been linked to changes in oral microbiome, which can promote harmful bacteria. This can contribute to increased rates of oral disease. And there's also evidence of broader systemic impacts like cardiovascular diseases as well. So the mechanism of harm is bitter nut chewing disrupts the natural balance of bacteria in the mouth, also known as dysbiosis. This imbalance encourages the growth of microbes that are harmful and trigger inflammation or damage to oral tissues. So one of the main components in betel nut is arocoline, which is toxic to oral cells, and this directly contributes to damage of the oral tissues. And over time, these changes create conditions mouth that can lead to development of cancer. So the objective of this study is aimed to characterize oral microbial communities in Papua New Guinea and understand how betel nut chewing may influence the presence of pathogenic bacteria. So the methodology was looking at 100 individuals, 50 chewers and 50 non-chewers from the metagenomic data with shotgun sequencing and also detection of the plant DNA for areca and piper DNA. I used alpha and beta diversity analysis as well. So in addition to bacterial profiling, we also screened the areca plant piper DNA consumed to confirm the exposure. So finally, we identified a specific bacterial species that appear to be significantly influenced by betel nut chewing behavior. So here are the key results compared to the oral. So globally, the betel nut impact the alpha and beta diversities in the oral microbiome. So which leads to a dysbiosis. So alpha diversity is a single person's oral microbiome, which looks at the richness and also the evenness of the individual microbiome, while beta diversity measures the differences between communities or individuals, especially the chewers and the non-chewers. So here we see there's increased difference between the chewers and the non-chewers in the red. This increases in the that so demonstrates the difference between the two groups. So in here, the alpha diversity reflects the microbial richness is increased in chewers. This suggests an altered and possible destabilized microbial ecosystem. So here we have found three pathogenic bacteria that are responsible for periodontal disease or gum disease. That's the Porphyromonas gingivalis, Treponema denticola, and Thanelia forsythia. So this complex is responsible for some of the major gum disease or periodontal disease. So in conclusion, our findings highlight a strong link between betel nut chewing and microbial changes that can drive oral disease. And so future work, there was no survey or self-report data. So there's a need for longitudinal and functional studies. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. We have Q&A for around 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you for that really interesting and clear presentation. Have you reported these results back to the people who were involved in the study yet? And if so, what were people's reactions to this information?
Thank you. It's part of a broader study that we did. So this is a part of this study. So it's not reported to them yet. Yes.
Thank you very much. That was a very good talk. I was just wondering because I'm here. I was just wondering because in your analysis, you separate the chewers and non-chewers. And I wonder if you also separate the chewers based on the way they chew the betel nut. Because I think there are like few ways to chew betel nut. Some people chew with tobacco, some people chew with like chalk or something. So yeah, just wondering if the differentiation of the way they chew the betel nut would also affect the oral microbiome. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good question. In fact, the way they chew betel nut also affects the oral microbiome. But this data was done, we collected the saliva, but we didn't ask them about whether they were chewers or not. We detect the presence of DNA, organelle DNA in the oral microbiome sample. So if there was more than 10 reads, then we categorize them as chewers and the others as non-chewers.
Okay, we have Monica and then George, Mario, Monica. Mario, ini.
Thanks, Chris, for this very good talk. I have not a question, or you as a medical doctor, do you have advice for those who chew?
Thank you, Prof. Monica, for that good question. This is a very sensitive topic, especially because it means livelihood for some, economic gain, and culturally, it is of very important. Betel nut is very important in their cultural and other gatherings. So, we look at the part that, apart from other factors that may influence the oral microbiome, we looked at the betel nut aspect of it. And yes, there are other studies that done previously that also states links betel nut chewing to oral cancer and periodontal disease. But this one is like the first oral microbiome study in PNG. Not yet, but it's very sensitive, so yeah, still planning on how to do that.
Okay, George, and then we can have Max as the last one.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for that amazing talk. I was wondering if you encountered some studies or whether you conducted these studies yourself on some positive impacts of betel nut. And what I'm thinking of is, for example, let's say jaw strength and jaw health, and whether it had an impact on that. Which is, I mean, because jaw health is something that is advertised, right, as using methods. So whether there have been studies on that, for example.
There's no studies on that yet, but from individual experiences, There's obviously the economic side to it, where people are cultivating and chewing and marketing for economic gain as well, and also for traditional cultural and importance. Say. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris, for the responses and also for the audiences for the question. Okay, thanks. Okay, next speaker is me, so I'll just go there. And the MC will remind me of time, okay? All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to first thank you, the OCSEAN, giving me okay. Thank you for the OCSEAN Consortium for giving us the opportunity to present our work related to creation of database for Enggano originally that we would like to extend into the neighboring languages. So this is a kind of digital humanities project as a small part when we create diachronic lexical database for Enggano. So these are the overview. First, we would like to introduce what is the Holy List. Some of you heard what Holy List is, and then the challenges that we have is, and which aspect of the greater data science and therefore that are involved in, and also in creating this database. So Holy List is a collection of word lists that is coordinated by Carol Holy that are gathered across the Indonesian archipelago around the 19th up to the early 20th century of around 1,000 lexical items, and the original purpose is to for Dutch colonists to better understand the linguistic situation of Indonesia. So there are a lot of word lists collected across 10 volumes of Holy List. So this is there are two versions of Holy List. One is the reference Holy List. The reference ones contains the Dutch, Indonesian or Malay and English translation. And that is a one volume. And there is a ID for its translation. By the way, so Holy List consists of three versions, 1894, and then the last one is 1931. And Stockhoff combined all of this version into what he called as the new basic list. So they combine the different index number of this gloss. The project, this project was when we collect the lexical database for Enggano, that is Enggano, okay. One of the barrier island languages. It is endangered and increasing shift towards Indonesian. And the second version of Holy List is what I call the regional Holy List, because that regional Holy List consisting of from volume 2 until 10, there are only words from the regions across Indonesia. So there are no translations of those volumes, the regional words. And for Enggano, there are around 8,000 items, and each of those words also has ID. And these are the other Holy List for the neighboring barrier island languages that I also try to compile. And the challenge here, maybe many of you have anticipated the challenges, is that the reference Holy List containing the gloss are in separate publication from the regional Holy List. So ideally, they are kind of disjointed relational database. So if you want to find the gloss of a regional word, you need to compare two kind of publication, the reference and then the regional one with the ID. Yeah, that's the challenge. So at that time, I was thinking 800 words is a lot. So rather than manually make the reference holiday, we have the ID number for the reference and also the translation that is matched with that ID. So basically, the aspect of data science that I mentioned in the title is not just the data analysis yet. Maybe I think Daniel will talk about the analysis of that have been collected. So I'm still in these two steps, okay, preparation and explorations. So what I did is digitize reference and regional holidays at that time for Enggano with OCR and then manually correcting the numbering, especially for the ID, because that is important, and also the spelling and so on. So now we have an interactive web version for this reference holidays in the Enggano Lang GitHub webpage. And the English gloss has been also linked to the semantic catalog. And then we have, of course, the plain text that is important for computational matching if we have the regional holidays digitized. So, and it's surprisingly is to be considered to be included in Concepticon for, I don't know, for which version in the future. But that's a good news in a way. And then we also digitized the Enggano holidays in this case. So we have in the plain text format the Enggano word and also the ID that can be merged using some kind of whatever programming language that we are going to use, using technique that is called joining between two tables, matching the ID like this. And then the results we have for Enggano so far, the English translation and what we call the Malay and Indonesian translation as well, that is matched by the ID. So this is part of the Enggano diachronic lexical database for the holy list and other legacy materials that are existing for Enggano. And then because we already have the reference holy list, the other languages from the regions can be matched with the gloss using index matching, of course. But the tricky part is, of course, when we digitize them and then fixing errors from the OCR. That is the longest part of this process, because when we have them clean, and then joining is a bit easier later, okay? So we have now work in progress for the other barrier island languages with the help of the students here. When I teach lexicology and lexicography, I taught them how to use WISE, and then so they help with the digitization, and I try to acknowledge their contribution as part of the database. Later on we publish this. But now I just want to show one example of result that we can show when we have of the reference holy list, the glosses, and the regional lexicon. So for instance, this is already the language in the burial islands on the left, lang name, and I just choose 3 concepts: angry, hard, and we can see, for instance, for Simalur and Semalur, the word for heart is ate and hate, but this kind of form is used to refer to liver in a language like Nias and Mentawai, so ato, ate, that are needed for this and involve domain-specific knowledge, including linguistics, like for orthography or transcription, standardization and coding to match the two lists, and also some kind of database management. So this research is supported from AHRC and also the students at Udayana, and also from postgraduate linguistic program that we are grateful for, and also from the Anglo team in general. Thank you. So any question? Okay, Laura.
Thank you very much for this excellent work. And yes, as someone who's used the HoloList, they're full of useful information, but they're such a pain to use. And so I was wondering how replicable this process is, and is this something that can be expanded out to the entire 10 volumes or 9 volumes plus the references?
Yeah, I would say it is replicable because the issue that I have faced so far is when we want to match the regional holy list to the master, because the master has been cleaned, and then when we OCR the regional one, some kind of index numbering is a mess, and that part needs to be fixed. And after that, we just need to match with the reference holy list. Another thing that is tricky is when we want to handle the notes aspect. So notes is different thing because they are footnotes, but once we have the holy list index number clean for the regional words, the matching with the reference is not too difficult. It's just one line of code, I guess. But the cleaning is a bit boring.
Thank you very much. Very useful work. Interesting. I have a question, but it does not relate to your work, but to the elicitation of the HoloList as they were elicited in the original, in those times. I think Dutch was used as the elicitation language, right? Yeah, so I think it's important to people, when they use HoloList, that they know this, because, for instance, your example, hati, is translated in Dutch very often as heart. And there are very few people in the Dutch society who are aware of the fact that it's actually the physical liver that it's denoting. So there could be some kind of translational issues there that have to do with the concepts as they're used in Dutch. But that's not relating to your work, it's just part of the issues with the HoloList. Yeah.
Thanks, Marianne. So yeah, that's very good point actually. I thought it's wow, it's too different, but because we are also use hati to refer to metaphorical heart here.
Indeed.
That's also what I thought. But yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. Do I still have time? So if there is no more question, we can continue to the last speaker. So shall I call you, Daniel, to start? Okay. So please welcome Daniel to the podium. This one for next, the down.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Okay, excellent. Should be okay. I need that. Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me here. So I'm in history of population contact, and you'll notice the acknowledgements are on behalf of the entire OCSEAN consortium. You'll see why I've said that when I get to it. There you go. It's always an intelligence test, isn't it? Great. Okay, so when I was preparing my abstract for this, it was several months ago, it was before anyone came to Bristol, and I thought what I'd talk about was how OCSEAN project had delivered in its deliverables, which was, the most detailed linguistic data set gathered at an unprecedented scale, matched genetic data, and matched genetic data, and that we have these new methods that we're going to use, to analyze that data and data. But I realized quickly in the last 2 months that I could give that talk, and I'm giving that talk, but it's a much humbler version of that talk, right? And that's because all of the work that's gone into what I'm about to say was not really done by me, right? I got the data like 2.5 months ago, and then the team of data scientists who came to Bristol, we all worked together on it, and that was the entirety of my contact with that data since that point in time. So there's actually a shadow talk here, which is about how auction has been organized and orchestrated, and it's a sort of contrast to the old way of doing things, right? Whilst this kind of pyramid of authority, right, that's going to continue to exist. It still exists. That's just part of how academia operates. And it does so for a good reason, right? When a professor just organizes everything, they end up with very consistent data. It's always very neat and tidy, and there's no mistakes. They're all ironed out. But it doesn't scale, right? That's the fundamental problem. It doesn't scale. And it also doesn't invest in the future, not in the way that auction has. So auction, by contrast, has been focusing on training people, right? Not just to be the cog in the wheel delivering the particular job that they have to do with the developers with their own agenda, and they've been, you've all been doing that. That's the talks we've heard today, and the combined data set that I get to analyze, this is almost a lucky byproduct of that work that if we didn't do it in this concerted, wouldn't have had, and that's the real value. And what that means is that I'm building on the work of everybody who's contributed to word lists, everybody who's contributed to training, so everyone who's contributed to coordination, everyone who's contributed to the auction mission. And so, this work is really not just mine in a very meaningful way. Yeah, and I think a really important thing that we need to do is tell the world that this way of operating actually can deliver. I'm going to tell you about some results. I think they're really exciting. And I think the fact that we can deliver that whilst having also done all of these wonderful things is just absolutely phenomenal. I'm really excited about it. Okay, and so, I got the data when these guys arrived in Bristol. They have committed to something really, really meaningful and scary, right? They started out basically not being programmers. They came to Bristol, they became programmers in order to do this job that I'm about to tell you about. So if you want to know more, go talk to them. You'll notice Chris is even sporting the colours, the Bristol Python Collective colours. So but yeah, if you know any of the others, go and talk to them about how you can get involved with this data now. Okay, I'm going the wrong way again, failing that intelligence test. Okay, so why is this exciting? Why? So you've probably read books that say things like there's no laws to history, but that's not true at all. There's a very strong law in history, and that's that information cannot flow between people unless those people are connected, right? People in the same place, they can have children together, they can exchange language, they can exchange ideas. If they're not in the same place, they can do none of those things, right up until the information age, where that law has just been broken. Okay, it's people are biology, right? So it's fine. That's the rule in biology, that there's no rules in biology. So what this means is that we can think of the world as having this framing where people are separated and then they come together, and I've drawn that as this contact event, and In that time, people will exchange genes, they'll exchange language, they'll exchange cultural ideas, and then they go away again, and then they go and have their lives. And the law about which people are together, that can't change, but how much contact happens in different fields of study, that can change, and that's what we're here to study. Okay, so we've got this huge auction data set, and it's got 78 language, made it through quality control. There's a whole bunch more that I really hope to see in the future. 82 and a bit thousand concepts that had to be looked at, and that's a lot, right? So the amount of time and effort to do this manually, the old way, would be, well, not inachievable, but it has previously been achieved. So I'm going to claim if we didn't do it this way, we wouldn't have done it. And so only achievable by the auction framework. And the data set that I get to study, now I've matched those to genetics, is about, well, it's exactly 43 populations. That's what's left right now. I'm pretty sure we can up that number in the future, but it's going to require additional work. So yeah, join me on that. If your data isn't here, get in touch. We'd really like to get it here. Please do help us do that. And I'm going backwards again. Hey, there we go. Brilliant. The final matched data set looks like this. It's primarily the Philippines. There's one language and genetic data set that was matched from Indonesia, is Bali. As you can see, I've color-coded them by genetic clustering, right? So these aren't self-identified labels, and so I'm not going to refer to them as such, right? So starting from the top, we have the purple populations, and those are strongly associated with Cordillerans. But I'm going to call them Central North population because I don't want to overload the term. Then we've got the blue populations, the island, coastal north population, the yellow population in the south. There's a green population in the south that are also genetically separated. And then there's the red population, which are the island peoples. And they're all genetically distinct, but this broad clustering is really helpful for seeing what's going on. There's some gray ones which you can barely read as well, hiding, and those were ones that weren't clustered. And so what I want to do in this talk is show what the data looks like, right? So how do you match genes and language? And the way that you can do it is by comparing each population to each other population for each type of data that you have. And then that is comparable. So what we've got here is a data set of genes and a data set of language. And on my screen, this is much more subtle. There's a lot more colors, distinctions that you can see. But broadly speaking, the structures are quite similar, right? We've got this red diagonal. Those are populations that are very similar to one another. And then away from the diagonal, we've got more complicated structure. In fact, on my screen, the linguistics data looks more distinctive than the genetics one. So there's something very odd about the color scale. But it does emphasize a really important point, which is that these are on different scales, and we're going to have to deal with that at some point. But just by looking at it, you should be able to see some structure. For the Bali population, there is a little bit of something going on down here. So Bali is the bottom line. I know you can't read the labels. That doesn't matter. I'll call it out whenever it's relevant. There's something going on between the way that blue and purple are related, right? Those are different structures. And there's something going on between that blue and red are related, and also yellow and red. So if you remember, red was the island, yellow was the south, red was the islands, blue was the North Islands. So what we'd like to do is ask, well, are these differences that we see, are they significant? And so we can do that. But before we do, we're going to examine the different semantic fields that we have collected in auction. And So the language data that I gave before was an average over everything, but here we've got all of the different language domains. And so I've highlighted kinship because kinship in this section here, unfortunately not visible, the blue and red connection, this was absent in the semantic domain regarding kinship, just like it was in the genetic signal. Different to the overall average for the genetic for the linguistic signal. Conversely, the other two boxes, they look like the overall language distribution that we saw. Whereas speech and language, they strongly link to the genetic signal and don't look like the linguistic signal. Sorry, so the other way around. They look like the linguistic signal and don't look like the genetic signal. And so we can quantify all of this with a statistical method that was developed in Auction. And this tries to account for the fact that those have different overall amounts of color shifts. And if we do that, we can get basically some pairs of populations that are significantly more like language or significantly more like genes. And so when we do that, we get, for example, the Ilocano population, they're in blue. They have more similarity to language than they do to genes with the purple population, right? Similarly, we've got stories around ACTA and the yellow versus red populations. But we'll focus in on Bali because we're here. And what we find is that Bali have this significant signal, which is that there. And that's more looking more like the red. So it's looking more like the genetic signal. And when I looked at all of the semantic fields, I found it was absent from nearly all of them, right? Because it's not very strong in the linguistic signal. But it was quite strong in two fields, which was warfare and hunting, and clothing and grooming, right? So why is that? Every single one of these dots has a story of why is that associated with it? And you probably know the answer for a lot of them, right? They will be things that are well understood in linguistics, but this is the first time that you've been able to ask, and how does that relate to genetics too? So hopefully, I think there's a gold mine here. We can do a lot more. We can ask about how similar each semantic field is to genetics or to language. So stuff up here is not like either, and you can't read it because of the overlay, but it says the house, right? The house is not very evolutionarily conserved. It looks independent almost in many language groups. Conversely, clothing and grooming is extremely well conserved. And then we've got basic actions in the physical world, track genetics, sense perception and speech and genetics. Speech and language, sorry, they track language better. So there's all of these details that are there, and we'd like to be able to understand it. So we've got some other method that allows us to put all of these semantic fields and all of the genetic data into one unified space, and that's really high dimensional. I don't really know how to visualize it, but there's several things that we can try. So the first thing was mapping things back to geography, right? So we know where all of these populations were. We just try to reconstruct where they were from their semantic fields, right? Or from each semantic field separately. And we get these sorts of distributions. So we get that the Gadang up here, for example, they are physically located here at that dot, but they're mapped on average to this dot over here, which is near all of the other blue coastal ones that I captured, right? So that this makes complete sense that they would be mapped to the other blue populations. And I've got similar stories for all of the other semantic fields. What's going on? We've got to examine it. But it's interesting how these move about. The other thing I tried was called UMAP. That's mapping everything into 2 dimensions. And when I do that, I get this structure that looks very much like the sort of tree that you'd recover from phylogenetics, but now we've got all the semantic fields on that tree, and it creates this lovely structure, and well, there's lots of work to do to interpret it, but it's great. So that's the end of the talk. It's a teaser. Please come and talk to me if you want to be involved in any of the downstream aspects of this. I can't do any of the interpretation by myself. I need people to take leadership of the kind of different case studies and examinations of what this all means. And yeah, I think it should be the people that had gathered that data, right? You gathered this data, so get involved in the analysis now. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting data set. I think we're going to do great things with it, and please help me do those great things. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, for the interesting talk. Any question? Okay.
To come back to your last slide, so you call for leaders and interpreters. So what kind of people are you looking for?
So if you want to use the idea of if I can go back to it, right? To this one. No, I think that putting any of the stories we've heard today into this bigger picture context is likely to be interesting. If you can see value for what you work on in having the understanding that perhaps your population here has some semantic field that's down here. That's the sort of question that, you don't need any data science. I can just give you the data in a simple way, and I can make pictures. I just need help interpreting those pictures. So if we want to do a focus in on what one particular language is doing, that would be really helpful. Yeah, obviously, it requires wanting to ask questions about how different bits of a language have changed, or wanting to examine how the genetic structure relates to that, right? But the possibilities are extremely broad.
Thank you. Any other question? If there is no more, so I think this is the end of the last session. So let's have a big applause for Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. It's over to you, MC.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the last session for today. Now we would like to invite all the speakers and the moderator to come forward. We would like to invite Mr. Gede Primadi Wijaya Rajak, PhD, Christopher Kinipi, and Daniel Lawson to come forward. We also like to invite Professor Hugo Reyes Centeno to hand over the certificate. Right, allow me to lead the photo sessions in 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Thank you to the moderator and the speakers, and Professor Hugo, please kindly be seated. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the last presentations conclude our first day of Auction International Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to also remind you all to kindly attend the second day of the conference at 8:30 a.m. Thank you for your kind attention, and may we continue to collaborate in the spirit of growth, quality, and shared commitment to higher education. Om Santi, Santi, Santi Om. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Namo Buddhaya, and greetings for all of us. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Right. Perhatian beberapa pengumuman untuk Bapak Ibu yang dari Indonesia. Untuk Bapak Ibu yang memerlukan SPPD, silakan menghubungi komite di bagian belakang untuk surat-surat administrasinya. And for everyone, tomorrow we will have conference dinner at 6. We really advise you to go to the restaurant from here, the venue. So if any one of you would like to perform tomorrow using your traditional costumes, please bring your traditional costumes tomorrow from the morning, so we can go right away from the venue to the restaurant conference, to the conference dinner restaurant. Thank you very much.